Go. Welcome to Adaption versus Adoption, NSF ATE Proposals. Your presenter is Elaine Kraft, PI of Mentor Connect, Leadership Development and Outreach for ATE. These break time videos are sponsored by the CCTA, the Centers Collaborative for Technical Assistance, an NSF ATE funded grant. CCTA's original purpose was to respond to a request from the Department of Labor, DOL, to the NSF to have ATE centers provide technical assistance services to DOL tax grantees. And now that tax grants are over, we are focusing strictly on helping NSF grantees and proposal writers. Our deliverables are to provide technical assistance webinars, workshops, and best practice documents.
Thank you, Christina. There is a little disclosure at the bottom of this slide. It's a little hard to read, so I want to point out that I do not speak for the National Science Foundation, and the ideas I share with you today are my own. First, let's consider definitions for these two words. Adaptation, something produced by adapting. In the context of grant-funded projects, this typically means implementation of strategies or materials developed by another program or funded project. Adoption, the action or fact of choosing to take up, follow, or use something, is a little different. Adoption typically means taking something and using it as is. You have no plans to change the original as you use it. Implementation of materials or duplicating strategies developed by someone else will often begin as adoption, but may end up as adaptation. So when should you consider adopting? Adoption implies strict fidelity implementation or duplication of a model or method. When adopting, the intent is not to change anything from the original. If it is a textbook, for example, the content, exercises, etc., provided by the author will be used as presented. Think textbook adoption, which is common in the K-12 public education systems. All students studying a particular subject at a particular grade level will be taught using the same textbook, no matter who is teaching or where the class is taught. With textbook adoption, the exams on the material developed by the author may also be used, so it is important to use all of the content as presented. Strict fidelity implementation is most important when conducting research or when the situation is almost identical to the one where the materials or strategies worked for someone else. With adoption, there is the expectation that you will duplicate the original to the extent possible in order to achieve the same outcomes as the original. The validity of the research experiment depends on inputs and variables being controlled and that they be identical or substantially similar. Think about inputs in your system. Can they match the original, such as students enrolled for a specific length of time, student demographics, and other variables in an educational environment? There are times when adoption makes sense. If you're familiar with Project Lead the Way, this is an example of adoption. Faculty development is controlled, materials and exercises are controlled. There is a highly defined implementation that must be followed. Now, think about adaptation. Adaptation implies that you anticipate or plan on making changes from the original to meet your specific situation. Perhaps you need more emphasis on a particular topic or want to use different local industry-specific exercises or lab experiments instead of what was used by the author of the materials or developer of the strategy. It may be that you like the basic approach of the model or materials you obtained from elsewhere, but you want to change things up with new examples or exercises for each successive class of students, or use only part of the resource by integrating a component into your class materials. This is classic adaptation. The reality is that every time something is used in a different context with different students, is taught by an instructor with a different academic preparation than the author, adaptation will take place to some extent, even if not intended. For grant-funded projects, adaptation usually makes the most sense. The basic idea is to take a proven product or strategy and see if you can tweak it to be successful in your environment and with your students. Evaluating your work and the impact it is having should direct changes you make in implementing your project as the project progresses. To get started, you will want to identify something that is very close to or has elements of what you have in mind. To do this, you will need to research other programs or funded projects to identify strategies or materials you think hold promise of addressing challenges you face. In using strategies and/or materials developed by others, you avoid duplicating effort or reinventing the wheel, as we say. With adaptation, you have the luxury of directing your energy and talent toward making improvements to the building blocks you've acquired from others, so that the project works for your college, your students, and your industry employers. NSF strongly supports building on previous work and knowledge this way. With adaptation, you begin with something for which there's already evidence or indicators of success. This is something that has worked somewhere else. This previous success may be the result of hours of trial and error and numerous improvements from which you can benefit. As college faculty, we like having the academic freedom to create our own courses. Total adoption of courses or materials developed by others is not something to which we gravitate. However, as smart college faculty, we need to realize that the education we provide our students will always have our specific DNA woven throughout, even if we use building blocks from colleagues who have done something similar before. Choosing adaptation can be considered working smarter. I encourage you to consider the Adapt and Implement funding option within the ATE projects category of the NSF ATE solicitation number 18-571. This opportunity allows you to request up to $400,000 for a 3-year project to adapt and implement materials and strategies proven successful elsewhere. Projects of this type are considered innovative in that you are implementing a model in a new environment and different location with different students and locally specific industry partners and needs. This is an excellent option for most prospective grantees. More good news. For those of you who are considering preparing another ATE grant following completion of a small grant for institutions new to ATE, there is an opportunity for you to apply for mentoring help to prepare a competitive ATE project proposal. The Mentor Connect project now offers Moving Up mentoring to encourage submission of second proposals to the ATE program. Check it out at mentor-connect.org. As I mentioned, in order to do an adaptation, you need to build on previous work. So where do you find good ideas that you might want to adapt and implement? Here are some great places to look. On the NSF website, you can do an award search. And if you do an advanced search, you can use an element code 7412 that will pull up only ATE projects. So that really narrows your search in an important and specific way. There is an ATE Impacts publication that can also help you. It highlights some of the best projects and a diversity of projects across the program to give you ideas and perhaps to help you find partners. Also, I encourage you to consider the High Impact Technology Exchange Conference, HITEC. This year's conference will be held July 22nd to 25th, 2019 in St. Louis, Missouri. This is a great conference where technician educators gather, and it is a great place to start harvesting ideas for your next Adapt and Implement project. Now, Christina, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Elaine, for this wonderful presentation.